Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are sort of stripping away all the usual feel-good slogans and wading into some pretty murky, slightly terrifying, but honestly absolutely essential waters.
Yeah, it's definitely not our typical lighthearted topic.
Right, because, usually when we talk about confidence, we treat it like a personality trait, like a vibe.
Exactly. Like you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, you're the person owning the room, strutting in with your shoulders back, or you're the one sweating in the corner just hoping nobody calls on you.
That is the standard view, for sure.
Yeah.
We tend to view confidence as this fixed metric of self-worth. You are a confident person or you aren't.
But the stack of research and sources we've got for today, specifically this really fascinating text titled The Machiavellian Strategy of Eroding Confidence, it just flips that idea completely on its head.
It really does. It's a complete reframe.
Because this isn't a self-help guide on how to feel better or, power pose your way to success. It actually paints confidence as a hidden battlefield.
A hidden battlefield, like that phrasing. The central argument here is that in almost every human interaction, there is an invisible scale.
An invisible scale.
Yeah. In any conversation, any meeting, any negotiation, someone is leaving a little more sure of themselves and someone is leaving a little less sure. And the source argues that this shift isn't accidental.
It's not just chemistry or a bad day.
No, it's a terrain where power is won or lost, methodically.
And the name attached to this strategy, Machiavelli, that sets a pretty specific tone right out of the gate. We aren't exactly talking about active listening or empathetic leadership here.
Definitely not. I mean, Niccolò Machiavelli is usually associated with statecraft, right? Princes running countries in Renaissance Italy.
Political ruthlessness.
Exactly. But the core premise of this deep dive is that his thinking applies just as much to the psychological terrain of a modern office or even a relationship.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. The source argues that power isn't always about raw force. You don't need to physically overpower someone or even outsmart them technically to control them.
Right, because I think we often assume the person in charge is just the smartest person in the room. But this suggests you don't have to be the smartest person if you can make everyone else feel like the dumbest.
That's it, exactly. Often, it's much more efficient to just reach inside someone's head and shake their internal pillars until they collapse on their own.
Wow. That is a chilling image. But I guess that's our mission today. We are going to unpack how confidence is methodically destroyed. Not so you can go out and become a villain, obviously.
Oh, please don't do that.
Yeah, but so you can recognize if this is actually happening to you. Because as the text suggests, the most sophisticated battles aren't against your body or your job title. They are against your belief in your own competence.
And that leads us perfectly to the first major concept in the source material, which is the cheap victory.
I love the efficiency of that term. The cheap victory. It sounds like something out of a real-time strategy game, but I'm assuming the stakes are a bit higher. What makes it cheap?
Well, it's about energy conservation. Think about it in terms of your own resources. The text argues that defeating an opponent through a fair argument or competition or raw skill, that is expensive.
It takes effort.
It takes a lot of effort. It takes time. And, crucially, you might lose. If I challenge you on facts, I actually have to know my facts better than you know yours.
Right. If I challenge you on skill, I genuinely have to be better than you. That requires work, training, preparation. I can't just fake it.
Exactly. But the cheap victory relies on an entirely different mechanism. You don't have to defeat an opponent if you can get them to defeat themselves.
So you bypass the fight altogether.
Yes. If you can dismantle someone's belief in their own ability, they will do the heavy lifting for you. They will back down. They'll defer to you. They will essentially silence themselves.
So instead of me fighting you, I just make you feel like you are totally incapable of fighting. I dismantle your will before the battle even starts.
Precisely. And the source actually gives us a really specific diagnostic list of symptoms to look out for.
Oh, like red flags.
Yeah, behavioral shifts. When this erosion is working, the target starts to change. They hesitate. They start seeking approval for things they used to just do automatically.
Oh man, they overthink every little detail.
Yes. The text calls it the paralyzed weighing of options.
I have seen this in corporate settings so many times. You have a brilliant person, someone who used to be an absolute rock star, who suddenly can't even send a routine email without 3 people proofreading it first.
That is the perfect example of this in action. They enter this endless loop of validation seeking.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they fail to make decisions. But here is the really insidious part, and the source makes a massive point of this.
Okay.
From the outside, to a casual observer, What does that behavior actually look like?
Well, if I see someone double-checking their work or asking for a second opinion, it looks like they are being careful. It looks like diligence.
Right.
Maybe humility, like a team player who just wants consensus.
And that is exactly the trap. It traps you because it mimics virtues. It looks like caution or humility. But the expert analysis in the text corrects this view completely.
What is it really then?
Internally, it isn't caution. It is gradual self-surrender.
Gradual self-surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You aren't checking your work because you want it to be excellent. You are checking it because you no longer trust your own eyes.
Okay, that distinction is crucial. So caution is, I want to get this right because I care. Erosion is, I am physically incapable of getting this right on my own.
Yes. Discerning between those two states is how you spot the Machiavellian strategy at play. The core insight linked to Machiavelli here is that disrupting someone else's confidence is often way more effective than open confrontation.
Because if I argue with you, you might fight back.
But if I make you doubt that you even understand the topic, you will back down on your own.
This actually brings us to a quote from the source that I have literally been thinking about since I first read it. It feels like the absolute centerpiece of this whole philosophy. It's about anatomy, essentially.
Oh, the one about eyes and hands.
Yes. Let me read it here. People generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands because everyone can see, but few can feel.
It is a classic Machiavellian observation. But in this specific context, it is really about the difference between optics and reality.
So let's break that down. Judged by their eyes, we are talking about perception.
We are. The raw meaning here is that human beings are wired to react to the appearance of performance, not necessarily the actual performance itself.
And the hands.
The hands represent the tangible reality, the actual skill, the actual output, the grinding work behind the scenes. But as the quote says, few can feel that.
Meaning, unless you are an expert in the exact same field, you can't really feel or touch how smart someone is just by looking at them.
Exactly. You judge them by how they carry themselves. Most people just watch the show.
You only see the show they put on. The confidence, the tone of voice, how fast they respond to a question.
Right. So if you are attacking someone's confidence, you aren't actually making them stupider or less skilled. Their IQ doesn't drop. Their years of experience don't just vanish. The source is very clear on this. The capability remains completely intact.
But you are destroying the perception of those skills.
Yes, both in the eyes of others and, crucially, in the eyes of the target themselves. And this is the real aha moment of the text. If I can make you believe you are bad at your job, you will start performing poorly. The belief creates the reality.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's engineered. It's not natural.
Engineered is the exact right word for it. The source explains that this is why attacks on confidence are so devastating. They totally bypass the facts. You could be the best accountant, the best writer, the best engineer in the entire room.
But if the strategy succeeds, you won't act like the best.
No. You will act like a novice. You'll stutter. You'll hedge your bets. You will apologize before you even speak.
And because everyone else judges with their eyes, they see the stutter, they see the apology, they see the hesitation, they just assume you are a novice. They assume you don't know what you're doing.
And the attacker wins without ever having to be better than you. They just made you look and feel worse. That is the ultimate definition of a cheap victory.
Okay, so that is the what and the why. It's efficient, it's brutal, and it completely relies on optics. Now I want to get into the how. Because the source gets very specific here. It doesn't just say, go make them feel bad.
No, it is highly systematic.
It breaks down the mechanics of destruction into two main pillars.
It does. The text identifies that self-confidence essentially stands on two legs: internal self-esteem and external validation. To truly erode confidence, a Machiavellian strategy has to target both simultaneously.
Let's start with pillar one. Internal self-esteem. This is basically what I think about myself when I look in the mirror. It's my internal monologue. How do they attack that?
The weapon of choice here is doubt. But we have to be very specific. It's not just general skepticism or disagreeing on a point.
Right.
The source describes a targeted process where the victim is consistently led to question their own memory, their interpretations, or their fundamental judgments.
This sounds a lot like the "are you sure that's what happened" conversation, or "I really think you're misremembering."
Precisely. I don't think you remember that correctly, or you're overreacting again, or that is a very strange way to interpret what I just said. It is extremely subtle.
It's almost like rewriting history in real time.
It is. And if you do this enough, the target's faith in their own perception starts to physically shake. The source actually explicitly links this Renaissance-era strategy to the modern psychological concept of gaslighting. The goal is to separate the person from their own reality.
Why is that separation so important for gaining power, though?
Because a person who trusts their own gut, who knows exactly what they saw and what they heard, is very hard to control.
They stand firm.
Right? They say, no, that is what happened. I was there. But a person who is constantly checking themselves, wait, am I crazy? Did I miss something? Is my memory going?
Right.
That person is malleable.
Soft clay.
Exactly. You can mold them into whatever you need them to be because they are no longer looking inward for the truth. They are looking to you to tell them what is real.
Man, so that is the internal pillar. You make them doubt their own mind. But we are social animals. We rely on other people. And that brings us to pillar 2, external validation.
Right. And this is where the strategy gets social. The method here is isolation.
Cutting them off from the herd.
Think about how you calibrate yourself on a normal day. If you have a bad day or someone criticizes your work, usually you go to a friend or a mentor.
Right.
And you say, hey, am I off base here? Did I totally mess that up?
And they say, no, you're fine. That guy was just being a jerk. Or actually, you did great.
Right. That is the reality check.
The feedback loop that keeps us sane. It anchors us.
The strategy of erosion requires breaking that loop. The source describes cutting off those supporters, mentors, or allies, or, even more subtly, poisoning those relationships.
How does the poisoning actually work? Is it just literally telling them not to talk to certain people?
Rarely that direct. It is often done through triangulation, maybe whispering to the target that their friends are actually laughing at them behind their back.
You know, they aren't really on your side.
Exactly. Or on the flip side, telling the allies that the target is unstable or difficult to work with. Be careful with him. He's going through a lot right now. He's a bit volatile.
Wow. So you create a barrier. The target feels like they can't go to their allies because they don't trust them anymore, and the allies pull back because they genuinely think the target is becoming toxic or unstable.
Exactly. And without that external feedback to calibrate themselves, and with their internal compass already spinning because of the doubt from Pillar 1, the target is completely adrift.
The internal self-esteem starts to wobble because there is literally nothing holding it up anymore. You are on an island, and the water is rising.
It is a pincer movement. You attack the mind from the inside with doubt, and you attack the social support from the outside with isolation.
And once those two pillars are compromised, the target is ready for the next phase. This is where we get into the consequences of this erosion, and it relies on one of the most primal human emotions, fear.
Which brings us back to another very famous Machiavelli quote found in the source. It is much safer to be feared than loved.
It is one of the most famous lines in political history. But the source applies it to psychological warfare here, and it focuses on something unexpected. Bandwidth.
Cognitive bandwidth.
Like internet speed.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I think most people interpret feared than loved as a simple deterrent. Like, if they fear me, they won't attack me.
Right, raw intimidation.
But the source highlights a side effect of fear that is much more functional for the attacker.
Yeah.
Fear forces constant internal calculation.
Oh, I see where this is going. If I am afraid of you, I am constantly watching you.
Yes. When you are afraid, whether it's of your boss, of your partner, of the consequences of making a mistake, you stop focusing on the actual goal. You stop focusing on how do I do this well, and you start focusing entirely on how do I not get in trouble.
You are constantly running a background simulation of what if I mess up?
Exactly. You switch from action to avoidance.
And that switch is fatal for performance. The source references learned helplessness here. It's a psychological state where, after enough negative reinforcement or fear, you just stop trying to change things because you truly believe it's impossible.
You just take it. You stop looking for the exit.
It drains all the creativity and initiative out of a person. You can't be brilliant if you're terrified. You can only be compliant.
And that serves the attacker perfectly. A terrified opponent is completely predictable. The terrified opponent doesn't take risks. They stay in their little box. They don't threaten the leader's position because they are far too busy just trying to survive the day.
Now, we have been talking about these attacks, and I think it is very easy for listeners to imagine someone screaming or being outwardly abusive, like a drill sergeant barking orders. But the source warns us about something entirely different. It contrasts open attacks with what it calls the fox method.
The fox versus the lion. Another classic Machiavellian dichotomy. The lion uses brute force. The fox uses cunning.
Why is the fox more dangerous in this specific context?
Because open attacks are loud. If I scream at you in front of the whole office, everyone sees it, you might get angry, others might feel sympathy for you. It clarifies the conflict. It's me versus you.
It unites people against the aggressor.
Right. But the
The
fox,
fox uses indirect methods. The source calls it subtle sabotage.
yes, these are actions that individually look completely innocent. They are plausibly deniable.
Let's roleplay this a bit because I think we have all met a fox. What does the fox sound like in a meeting?
It usually sounds like doubt disguised as support. This is the classic concern troll.
Okay, give me a line. Let's hear it.
I'm only saying this because I care about you, but are you sure you're ready for that presentation?
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough crowd. I'd hate to see you get eaten alive up there.
Ooh, yeah, that is gross. It sounds like they are looking out for you, but they just planted a massive seed of panic. They just told you you aren't ready.
Exactly. Or they ask questions that seem well-intentioned, but actually just highlight your incompetence.
Did you remember to check the data? I know you really struggled with the numbers last time, so I just want to make sure you're good.
That is brutal because it reinforces the narrative that you are someone who struggles. Oh, there goes Dave, bad with numbers again, and they said it in front of the whole team.
Right. We're sharing useful information that is actually just demoralizing. Hey, I heard the client really hated the last project. Just thought you should know so you can prepare yourself.
It really is death by 1,000 cuts.
And the genius of the Fox method, according to the source, is the pattern. Any single one of these comments is totally defensible. If you call them out on it, they can just say, I was just trying to help. Why are you so sensitive? I am on your side.
Which feeds right back into pillar one, doubt. Because then you think, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe they are genuinely helping. Exactly. It forms a pattern of slow, consistent erosion that is very hard to prove to HR, but impossible for you to ignore. It is deniable aggression. It makes you feel crazy for feeling attacked.
There is one final variable in this equation that the source mentions, and I think this is the most strategic part of the whole text. Timing. Because you can't just unleash these strategies whenever you want.
No, you can't. The source is very clear on this. These attacks are most effective when the target is already vulnerable.
So kicking them when they are already down.
In a way, yes. After a failure, a setback, a breakup, or during a major conflict. That is what the text calls the critical moment.
But why? Why not do it when they are on top, like to knock them down a peg?
Because when you are stable, confident, and winning, your mental defenses are up. If someone tries to gaslight you when you just won an industry award or closed a huge deal, you will just laugh them off. You have tangible evidence of your own competence right in front of you. You are essentially bulletproof.
But when you have just failed.
When the soul is already shaking and looking for explanations, why did this go wrong? Why did I fail? Am I losing my touch? That is exactly when the helpful doubts slide in as truth.
The manipulator just offers an explanation.
Right. They say, you failed because you aren't good enough. And because you are vulnerable and because you are desperately looking for answers, you accept it. You internalize their strategy as your reality.
That is incredibly dark, but it makes perfect sense structurally. It's totally opportunistic.
It is. The text notes that what would be obvious manipulation in good times becomes accepted wisdom in bad times.
So we have covered the cheap victory, the attack on perception using the eyes versus hands, the two pillars of doubt and isolation, the paralyzing effect of fear, the subtlety of the fox, and the importance of timing. That is a lot to process.
It is a very comprehensive framework. It really is a breakdown of how to dismantle a person without lifting a single finger.
So let's wrap this up. What is the big takeaway here? Because honestly, reading this makes the world feel like a very dangerous place. It makes me want to distrust literally everyone who offers me advice.
It can feel heavy, I know. But the source's conclusion is vital here. It emphasizes that discussing this isn't about glorifying cruelty. It is not a how-to guide for being a monster in your office. It is strictly about recognition.
Recognizing that power always involves perception management.
Yes. We have to realize that power in human relationships, whether that is in politics, business, or your own family, often relies on perception management and fine-tuned influence. The ultimate victory for a manipulator isn't when they destroy you. It's when they get you to lose to yourself.
When you actively surrender your own confidence.
Yes. And knowing the mechanics, seeing the fox in action, spotting the opportunistic timing, feeling the isolation happen, that is the only way to defend against it. You cannot fight an enemy you can't see.
It's about inoculation.
Exactly. By making these invisible scales visible, you completely take away their power. When you hear the concern troll in a meeting, you don't think I'm weak. You think, that's the fox method. I see exactly what you're doing.
And just putting that label on it changes everything. Once you see the game, you can just stop playing it. You can reclaim your reality.
That is the hope the text leaves us with.
I want to leave you with a thought to mull over as you go about your day. We have talked a lot today about caution versus paralysis. So ask yourself this. If confidence is indeed a battlefield, and caution can be a mask for self-surrender, where in your own life are you mistaking your own hesitation for wisdom?
That is a tough question to face.
It is. Is that pause really you being smart and diligent? Or is it actually the result of someone else's strategy playing out inside your head? Because if you are waiting for permission to trust yourself, you might be waiting forever.
Well said.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.